Welcome to Volume 7 of Lord of the Mysteries, The Hanged Man. The previous volume concluded with Chief Colin and Lovia sacrificing open a path of hope for the citizens of Silver City. Silver City finally left the God-forsaken land and returned to true history. Derek became an elder of the 6-member council. Mansion Frantual was completed. He drank the potion he had prepared long ago. Even though advancement would bring more unknowns and dangers, Clean had no way back. The apocalypse was approaching, and enemies were chasing him. The powerless war, everything was pushing him towards a higher sequence. Clean chose to drink the potion and advance to sequence 2, Miracle Invoker. At this moment, Clean had become a supreme-level magician, capable of allowing different people to witness miracles and fulfill their wishes. Aphically and others initially adapted to their new states. They visited the 7 lights of the spirit world to answer the questions he had encountered and inquire about information regarding the cosmos. A Simon Light's explanation was similar to the Big Bang Theory. The once most powerful existence, the original creator awakened and split, forming 22 god pathways and 9 sources. Some of these benigns. Therefore, powerful outer gods throughout the universe gathered in Clean's star system. Some wanted to reclaim their own sources and to obtain similar sources and high sequence characteristics. However, before the original creator split, he constituted an invisible barrier, preventing those outer gods from directly invading. But as Tinge, the original creator, had never truly revived, his will and power were waning. Cracks had appeared in the invisible barrier. When the barrier disappeared, the apocalypse would arrive. Therefore, many gods misled their authorities to increase their strength, advancing to become old once, above sequence to cope with the future apocalypse. Furthermore, Clean also inquired about the celestial worthy of the eternal sky, mysterious primordial, mentioned in the incantation in the Entree fog above. He was an old one active from the end of the previous epoch to the first epoch of this epoch, also known as the Great Ruler above this Great Lord, and the Lord of the Mysteries. He was one of the personalities split from the original creator, Celestial Worthy. Clean's heart sank and his body turned cold. Was his body's story of God awakening within the ancient sun god's body? He realized that the one gradually awakening within him at this moment was precisely this Lord of the Mysteries. Having obtained his and returned to Backlund with complex emotions, he visited Leonard, the Hanged Man, who was already a high sequence deacon, and learned about the situation of his sister Melissa and brother Benson for Miss Justice. He mentioned Trutch of Steam, which had been expelled for taking the wrong stance in the war, and took away the magic mirror erods. The 3 major churches of Lone were now replaced by the Church of the Earth Mother, taking the Church of Steam and Machinery. The Black Knight goddess had abandoned the title of Crimson Moon, and Lilith, the ancestor of the vampires, had grasped the Moon as her identity as the Earth Mother goddess. The Black Knight goddess, on the other hand, had grasped the authorities of death and war. So, what Clean needed next was to advance to sequence 1 Seer. Therefore he disguised himself as Merlin Herms and began the Afton Herker, fulfilling people's wishes. When he arrived at Belden, he encountered sealed artifact Zo2, the Book of Rules. He and the Servant of Concealment joined forces to control the sealed artifact and offer it to the Black Knight goddess in exchange for the Blasphemy Slate, the Fool card. He learned the potion formula and advancement ritual for sequence 1 Seer. On the Silver City side, along with the establishment of City, they also began life in the outside world. Although they were still afraid when night fell, they would light lamps. These lights, whether bright or dim yellow, were reflecting eyes of the people of Silver City. But just like the Milky Way in the night sky had fallen to the ground, because the Fool had helped them escape the God-forsaken land, established city-state. From now on, a church that believed in the Fool officially appeared. The Fool's anchor as a deity was basically stabilized. Magician Force, with the help of her teacher Dorian, finally advanced to seasoned scholar. On the other side, Bernadette finally found the island that her father, Emperor Roselle, had visited before his death. This island contained the Black Emperor's mausoleum. Emperor Roselle inside had been pleated, almost completely losing his sanity, and did not even recognize his beloved daughter, launching a merciless attack on Bernadette. In the midst of the battle, Bernadette's avia munition and uttered a Chinese word, hometown. This was the only Chinese word Emperor Roselle had taught her. Hearing this word, the Emperor stopped attacking. He recognized it attacking. He had many things he wanted to say to his daughter, such as her cake skirt when she was a child, and the little games he personally designed for his daughter. But he was polluted and he was contrite any time. He could only, with tears in his eyes, ask his daughter to seal him and never return. Bernadette stared blankly at the primitive island for a few seconds, slowly turned volume more towards the sea. Every few steps she took, she would stop and turn her head to take a look. Soon she returned to the dawn, walked into the captain's cabin, and opened the room specially used for collections. Inside were many picture books, texts, clothes, and skirts. The hand chess which only a few people in this world knew how to play. She leaned against the wooden door, slowly slid down, sat on the floor, and looked at the gloomy sky outside the captain's cabin window. Drop after drop of water slid down Bernadette's face and dripped onto the floor surface. At the same time, because Bernadette recited the fool's honorific name, Clayne's paper figurine above the gray fog arrived inside the mausoleum. The two transmigrators from Earth met for the first time. Brazil was not surprised at all by Clayne's appearance. He placed one hand on the armrest and leaned his body slightly forward, looking have come. You shouldn't have come. Roselle sighed, confirming the origin of the person in front of him. The two exchanged information about the apocalypse, about the outer gods, and about Roselle's diary. Emperor Roselle spoke about his diary, saying that the only opportunity back then was to become the Black Emperor, but he ultimately failed and did not escape pollution. His voice was calm as he explained the important matter, requesting that Clayne take care of Bernadette and provide some help when she needed it. Although she would soon be a big figure in the mystical world, as a father, he was always worried. Clayne agreed. Roselle became silent, and after a while, he said, "You are my contemporary, Bernadette should call you Uncle Joe." As he spoke, Roselle's tone inexplicably carried a hint of pity. After coming to this era, I initially treated everything as a game and had a lot of fun. But occasionally, I would think of my hometown, think of the past. The longer I lived, the more frequently this feeling appeared. Just like fallen leaves always return to the roots. But at least I have a daughter, a wife, and many attachments in this world. You are different. I can feel your loneliness, a loneliness that permeates from your bones. Roselle rambled about his life on Earth, and Clayne listened quietly. Roselle finally reminded Clayne to collect all 22 blasphemy slates, and to be careful of the mother card. Roselle's voice gradually lowered. He looked at Clayne and smiled. Goodbye, friend. I hope there will really be a day when we meet again. His figure rapidly became illusory, leaving only a faint shadow, lingering on that iron-black throne. Roselle Gustave returned to eternal slumber. Bernadette also used the price of personally sealing her father to resolve her inner knot. She prepared the Sequence 2 potion, drank it, and advanced to Sequence 2 Sage of the Seer pathway. Miss Audrey, already a demigod of the Spectator pathway, was noticed by the higher-ups of the Psychology Alchemists, and became a high-level member of the organization. Their gathering place was the Garden of Eden, imagined by Adam. Clayne gradually digested the Miracle Invoker potion. After completing a miracle for Moon City, the Miracle Invoker potion was basically digested, and he began to prepare for the ritual needed for his Sequence 1 advancement. Thus, Utopia, a maritime city that could bring people beautiful dreams, was formed. Many ships that had lost their way in the storm came here and spent a wonderful night. Afterwards, they left, and the legend of Utopia was formed. Everything here was so real, and everything here was so beautiful, so that this city began to be investigated by the authorities, and began to be recognized by everyone. Subsequently, Clayne completed his advancement ritual through the genie lamp. At the same time, Clayne's advancement also attracted Amun, Zeradal and Adam. Even Mr. Dor's godhood ritual was triggered at the same time. The tide of the era crashed in, making Clayne breathless. After completing the ritual, he drank the Sequence 1 potion and saw all of his experiences. He was Joe Mingrui, also Clank Moretti, as well as Sherlock Moretti, German Sparrow, Dwayne Dantetz, Merlin Hermes. When all identities gradually solidified into his body, Clayne finally advanced to Sequence 1 Seer, the Mysticism Servant. This utopia was ultimately destroyed by a terrifying natural disaster and buried in the dust of history. Mr. Dor, in his madness, was about to have his fate stolen by Ammon. Mr. Dor was ultimately kind. He did not want to bring madness and disaster back to reality, so he listened to Ammon's words. Ammon seized this opportunity to complete the Sequence 0 godhood ritual of the Seer pathway, successfully advancing to Sequence 0 error, and simultaneously stealing Mr. Dor's fate, becoming a deity of two pathways. At this moment, Zeradal hid in the mist of history, but was caught by Clayne. Relying on the authority of the mysticism servant, Clayne forcibly aggregated Zeradal. Zeradal could not prevent Clayne from taking the Beyonder characteristic from him, and in the end, could only disappear. Clayne used the ritual effects that had not yet fully dissipated to directly devado Zeradal's Beyonder characteristic. In the end, Clayne stood at the Sequence 1 position, becoming an Angel King of the Seer pathway. However, Ammon and Adam had respectively advanced to Sequence 0 deities. Although Clayne knew that the Lord of the Mysteries would awaken within him, he had no way to retreat. The apocalypse was approaching, and everyone was trying to improve their strength, seize authority, and advance to Old Ones above Sequence in order to resist the outer gods. Ammon wanted to seize Sephira Castle from Clayne and steal Clayne's fate. Clayne could only resist by advancing to Sequence 0, the Fool. But the higher the sequence, the faster the will of the Lord of the Mysteries would awaken. Just as Adam had said to Clayne before leaving, all gifts of fate have long been marked with a price in secret. Thus concludes Lord of the Mysteries Volume 7 Tree, The Hanged Man.